It starts when you catch yourself doing it again, and you alone in your room or your car or walking down the street, and your mouth is moving and words are coming out, and there is no one there, but somehow you having a full conversation anyway. You stop and you look around, hoping no one saw, and you feel that familiar wave of embarrassment because somewhere along the way someone told you that talking to yourself is strange, and talking to yourself is crazy, and talking to yourself is something only lonely or broken people do. But here is what they never told you, and here is what psychology has finally proven, and here is what might change everything you believe about that voice you've been ashamed of your entire life. Talking to yourself isn't a sign of madness. It's a sign of cognitive superiority. Let us start with what is actually happening in your brain when you speak to yourself out loud, because it is not just noise, and it is not just habit, and it is not the symptom of a problem that needs fixing. Psychologists call this external self-talk, and research from the University of Wisconsin found that it dramatically accelerates cognitive performance and problem-solving ability. When you speak your thoughts out loud, you not losing your mind, you actually organizing it, and you giving your brain a second channel of processing that silent thinkers simply don't have access to. Your words become a mirror, and suddenly you can see your thoughts from the outside, and you can examine them and question them and refine them in ways that purely internal thinking cannot achieve. This is why the smartest people in history, from Albert Einstein to Charles Darwin, were known to mutter to themselves constantly while working through complex problems. They weren't crazy. They were using a cognitive tool that most people are too embarrassed to access. But there's more happening here than just problem solving, and this is where it gets fascinating. When you talk to yourself, you activate something called the phonological loop, which is a component of working memory that processes verbal and acoustic information. By speaking out loud, you essentially giving your brain twice the input, and you hearing your own thoughts, which creates a feedback loop that strengthens neural pathways and improves retention and comprehension. This is why studying out loud works better than studying silently, and this is why athletes who give themselves verbal instructions perform better than those who stay quiet, and this is why children who talk themselves through tasks develop faster cognitive abilities than children who don't. You were never doing something wrong. You were instinctively accessing a higher level of mental processing that quiet minds never reach. Now, let's go deeper, because if you someone who talks to yourself regularly, then you probably do it most when you stressed or overwhelmed or trying to navigate something emotionally complex. And that's not coincidence. That's intelligence. Psychologists at the University of Toronto found that self-talk is one of the most effective tools for emotional regulation. And when you verbalize your feelings, you move the processing from your amygdala, which is reactive and emotional, to your prefrontal cortex, which is logical and controlled. You literally talking yourself from panic into clarity, and from chaos into calm, and from overwhelm into understanding. The voice you've been embarrassed about is actually your brain's most sophisticated self-regulation system working exactly as it should. When you say things like, okay, calm down, you've got this, or let's think about this step by step, or what's really happening. Here, you not being weird. You being a genius who has figured out how to use language as a tool for psychological survival. Most people let their emotions control them silently and invisibly, and they have no idea why they spiral or panic or shut down. But you've discovered something they have, and you've learned to intervene in your own mental processes using the most powerful technology humans ever developed, which is language itself. But here's where it gets personal, because if you talk to yourself a lot, then you probably grew up in an environment where you had to figure things out alone. Maybe no one explained the world to you and you had to narrate it yourself. Maybe no one helped you process your emotions and you had to become your own therapist. Maybe you were lonely or overlooked or left to navigate complexity without guidance, and so you developed an internal companion because you had no external one. Your self-talk isn't just intelligence, it's also survival. You learned early that you could rely on your own voice when no one else was available, and that adaptation, that coping mechanism became a cognitive advantage. The same thing that might have started from loneliness became the very tool that makes your mind sharper than those who never needed to develop it. And now, as an adult, you might still feel shame when someone catches you talking to yourself, and you might apologize or laugh it off or pretend you were singing or on the phone. But you don't need to hide anymore, because what you're redoing is exactly what the most brilliant minds in history have done. You're thinking out loud. You're processing externally. You're reusing every tool your brain has access to instead of limiting yourself to silent cognition like everyone else. The research is overwhelming. A study published in the Quarterly Journal of Experimental Psychology found that people who talked to themselves while searching for objects found them faster than those who stayed silent. Another study found that self-talk improves focus and task performance, especially during complex or stressful activities. And neuroscientists have confirmed that verbal processing activates more regions of the brain simultaneously than silent thought alone. You're not scattered. You're expanded. So if you're someone who talks to yourself constantly, here's what you need to understand. You are not crazy, and you are not lonely, and you are not losing your grip on reality. You are using your voice as a cognitive enhancer, and you are processing the world at a depth that quiet minds cannot access, and you are doing exactly what geniuses do when they think. Stop apologizing for the muttering. Stop hiding the conversations. Stop feeling shame for a behavior that literally makes you smarter and more emotionally regulated and more capable of navigating complexity. Carl Jung said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And every time you talk to yourself, you are making the unconscious conscious, and you are dragging your hidden thoughts into the light where you can actually work with them. That is not weakness. That is mastery. So let the words come. Let your voice fill the empty room. Let yourself think out loud without embarrassment or apology, because the greatest minds who ever lived did exactly what you're redoing. They talked to themselves. They worked through problems verbally. They understood that the voice in your head becomes infinitely more powerful when you let it out of your mouth. You were never strange for talking to yourself. You were just ahead of everyone who was too afraid to try.